We are very pleased with your presence, and I would like to thank the presence of ambassadors from our member countries, the ambassadors of Argentina, Peru, ambassadors of the Asia-Pacific region, Thailand, representatives of other embassies and delegations, friends, technicians, academics, and ALADI staff members. All of you, thank you for being here. Today, we will see part of this joint work we are carrying out with the ECLAC, today represented by Roberto Urmeneta, who works with us in this project, also a representative of the CAF, who all of you know very well, Gladys Chenua, is here with us. This tool is a result of the cooperation of these three institutions working together, and it aims at bringing us in Latin America closer to the Asia-Pacific reality. We all agree and believe that power in the world is relocating, moving towards other regions. The distribution of world power is changing, especially regarding trading power from the North Atlantic towards the Pacific, and in that sense, the Asia-Pacific countries, especially China, are now in a very solid position regarding investments, trade, and the new commercial and political geography in the international sphere. Therefore, it is very important for us to have a tool like the Observatory, because it is about producing data and knowledge that are not yet available. And I believe that that is our most important contribution. And this is what Ignacio is developing here at the ALADI, monitoring trading, investment and trade and economic insertion opportunities of the countries, compiling that information and producing data and information that are currently not available on the web. So, this portal that we are presenting today should include the knowledge on trade agreements, on business opportunities in each country. This refers to several countries of the Latin America and Asia-Pacific regions, trade intelligence, that is, a series of data and knowledge that will be very useful to deepen the information on these two regions, as well as to strengthen their relationship. I believe this portal should not only include information, but it will also have to participate in a debate that exists in Latin America on the impact of the emerging Asia-Pacific region on the Latin American development strategies. You know, we are discussing if the emerging Asia-Pacific region is dangerous for our economies, turning the focus on raw materials, and how the relationship between Latin America and Asia-Pacific is being handled. It is a very interesting debate, as this new actor in many cases complements our production, especially in South America, but also in some other regions in Central America and the Caribbean. So this opens a discussion that contributes to the debate on the development projects in Latin America. I personally believe that the growth of a region in the world that is highly and strongly complementary to Latin America is very useful, very functional, and also interesting. Now, the way Latin America is going to use such complementarity or benefit from it will depend on the national and regional development strategies, as it would be very important for Latin America to start building a unique voice in its relationship with that region. The ECLAC, we just had a meeting at the ECLAC, is making a very interesting effort trying to present unified positions at the United Nations. For the first time in history, there is an exercise of Latin America and the Caribbean, all 33 countries, trying to coordinate joint visions regarding strategic issues of the global agenda. This is a very important step, a very interesting data, as one of the things that constitute political, economical, and social agent is to have a unique or similar vision on the main issues of the global political strategic agenda. And the relationship in this case with China and Asia Pacific is very important. Therefore, in the short term or even in the long term, it would be good for Latin America to have a closer and more cooperative relationship with that region. So, within that framework, today you will see the contents of the portal presented by Ignacio after the words of the representative of the CAF, Gladys Genua, and of the representative of the ECLAC, Roberto Urmeneta. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to Gladys. Thank you very much. I would like to greet the ALADI Secretary General, the representative of the ECLAC, Roberto Urmeneta, both partners of the CAF in this important project. I would also like to greet the ambassadors of the ALADI member countries and the representatives of our counterparty in the Observatory, that is the Asia-Pacific region, and all of you that are present here today due to the new convocation of the Observatory. The excellent results of each of our events show us how interested we all are in this subject. I believe that this is a very important moment as we are always growing stronger in the creation of this observatory. Nevertheless, it is important to highlight what we are doing today, because today we are making it available to everybody. This whole year, under Ignacio's coordination, the three institutions have been working very hard building the observatory. We organized the contents, prepared the reports that you will be able to download from that portal on the web, as well as the reports that we were able to prepare thanks to the help and support of the ECLAC, the ALADI, and external consultants. We also systematized a lot of existing information widely available on the web in such a way that you will find it analyzed and really prepared in a way that will be very useful for all of you, and I believe this is highly important. As the Secretary General said, this is a tool. With the Observatory, we are creating a tool that we hope will be useful to all the ones interested in working on foreign affairs, especially on the Latin America-Asia-Pacific relationship, on the emerging regions and the growing importance this relationship is gaining in all our countries. It will be a very useful tool for the governments, as it will provide basic information that will let them establish a better insertion strategy or negotiate positioning strategies related to those countries. It will let businessmen find information to better conduct their business strategies and identify markets and opportunities of interest, countries with which they could establish relationships, and from that point they could deepen much more in the studies and research on trade intelligence that will let them find good business opportunities. It will also be very useful for academics. I am pretty sure that we will constitute an academic committee within the observatory, and the possibility of finding processed and analyzed information will give a high added value to their research processes. Soon Ignacio will inform you that we will call the academic committee because from now on we want the portal not to be built only by the ECLAC, the ALADI, and the CAF, but also by every person participating, so that we can call for research and studies through this interactive tool. Everybody can add the outcome of said works. For us at the CAF, this is a very useful tool. As a Latin American development institution, the CAF is an institution that Latin Americans have and take care of in order to coordinate their development processes in the region. We have already signed a lot of agreements with several countries, some of Asia and also of Europe, letting the region play an important role in bringing resources from those regions to Latin America. So, the CAF makes it easier for investors and resources of those regions to come to Latin America and finance important infrastructure projects, bringing here best practices and successful experiences of other countries that could contribute to generate development strategies for ours. Besides, we have become a bridge that connects Latin America with the rest of the world, as we have signed several agreements with think tanks and academic centers in Asia and Latin America. This will let us know how the rest of the world sees Latin America. Our mission is to help Latin America to have a leading role in the world, and tools like the Observatory contribute to make it possible. I would like to greet all the CAF members that are watching this presentation online, which shows that we are already using the IT tools that the portal will provide. I am pleased to know that they are connected and listening right now, because the CAF believes that this must be a horizontal tool. It covers several of our working areas, such as foreign affairs, research and knowledge generation, establishment of public policies to help the countries enhance their competitiveness, and the financial areas that bring resources to the region, letting us have more financial potential for Latin America and the Caribbean. Again, I would like to thank you all for your presence, Chacho Alvarez, Roberto Urmeneta, and especially Ignacio for his hard work to coordinate these institutions, which is not an easy task. Thank you all very much. Carlos, Gladys, Ignacio, I am very happy to be here and to greet all of you, the ambassadors, the representatives of the governments, of the chambers of commerce and universities. First, I would like to greet you on behalf of Osvaldo Rosales, who wasn't able to come due to his agenda. I also had to run away from an activity of the ECLAC in Santiago. As all of you were very busy people, I will not make a very long speech. I will just handle 3 topics very briefly. This subject is very important for the ECLAC. We have been carrying out research on the relationship between Latin America and Asia and giving advice to our government on these matters. We have published several papers. Nevertheless, we thought something was missing. We had the feeling our research was too intellectual, and we were not involving the agents that in fact established the relations between Asia and Latin America. Therefore, we started checking the opportunities we had and the ways to better involve the agents that make real political and commercial relations among countries. As a result, several ideas popped up, and one of those ideas, very difficult to develop, was the observatory. With this launching of the observatory, one phase is finally completed, one important phase that involved a lot of work, as well as some discussion that were difficult because we wanted to make available a lot of information for the whole group of political and social agents. And finally, we complete this phase with this presentation. But, and this is the last thing I want to mention, although this phase was completed, the next phase is the most important one. What are we going to do with this observatory? As we were saying, the observatory is a tool. We want it to be really useful to researchers, chambers of commerce, useful to generate this discussion, as Carlos Alvarez pointed out so clearly, and how we are going to relate, which strategies we are going to use to establish a relationship with the Asian countries. So, what is most important in the next phase? We hope this observatory will help to generate a well-founded discussion and with no wrong ideas on this relationship with Asia. Some weeks ago we presented here the importance of the relationship with Asia, that we could export products with added value to the Asian countries, and that we must know better, we must elaborate more. With no further comments, we will let Ignacio present the observatory, and I insist, we shall use it. It shouldn't be just a tool, but a tool that is useful to prepare strategies, research, and define policies. Thank you very much. Thank you, Roberto. Now I invite all of you to see the presentation. Good morning. First, I would like to greet all the ones that are following the event on the web. As Gladys already said, we believe that's very important. And of course, it is also important to tell you that the construction of such a portal involved a lot of people, a lot of staff members of all the three organizations. We should thank all of them, especially the staff and technicians that work in the three organizations that make up the observatory, the ALADI, the CAF, and the ECLAC, who have been working very hard to build this portal. Also the team of the observatory that has been growing with the very active participation of trainees from the Republic of Korea and of the Catholic University of Uruguay, who were highly professional and very dedicated to this project. I would like to thank the IT company Exacta that worked very hard together with us in order to make it possible to launch the portal of the observatory today. Going to the point, there you are seeing the homepage of the website, and I would like to start referring to the sections of the portal on the left side, namely about the observatory, agreements and negotiations, economic, commercial monitor, and business intelligence. I would like to say that these three are the main tools of the site. As you can see, there is also a direct access to each of them in the center of the homepage. Back to the sidebar, we also see schedule, news, press, publications, and contact. These would be the sections of the portal. Well, also down here we have direct access to latest news, key publications that will be permanently updated. We can also access all publications and news. Later we will see that. The whole website is also available in English and Portuguese, including all its sections. We had an issue when trying to reach those languages, which sometimes happens when you launch a new site. Anyway, it is possible to browse in English and Portuguese everything we are seeing today in Spanish. When we navigate the first section about the observatory, we have access to institutional information on the observatory, its background, and on the three organizations that make up the observatory. It is not necessary to explain much about them because you know them very well. Nevertheless, we have a link to the website of each organization, and it provides basic information on the ALADI, CAF, and ECLAC. This institutional section not only includes information on the institutions or the observatory itself, but also on the countries and economies that are part of this observatory. We can access them here. There are 19 countries of Latin America and 18 countries of Asia Pacific. Or we can use the upper buttons for Asia Pacific and Latin America to get institutional information and basic data on these countries. Here you see Latin America, where we see all the Latin American members of the observatory, the map, and we have information on each of the countries. We will check Uruguay as an example, and here you see what it displays. The data provided are the same for all countries. Basic data on the country, chief of state, population, etc., main links to the websites of the Uruguayan government, and also business information of the country, tariffs profile, commercial profile, the WTO analysis of its trade policies, all information that you can access quickly to have important economic and commercial information in order to get to know more on that country. Here we also have access to a document on the international organizations of which Uruguay is a member, and in the lower part of the portal we have a tool, the tool of this section, that lets you check embassies, consulates, and honorary consulates of Asia Pacific in Uruguay or of Uruguay in Asia Pacific. We believe this is an important tool. Let's see an example. If we select China and we want to see embassies and we are searching entities in Uruguay, so when we click on search, it presents the embassy of China in Uruguay. Of course, we all know that China has an embassy in Uruguay. If we click here, it displays basic information on the embassy, contact data, contact person, etc. But we can also see another case. Let's select India, and we don't select any category, so that it presents all of them, and we click on search. It shows the honorary consulate of India and the concurrent embassy with Uruguay, as India does not have any embassy in Montevideo, so the concurrent embassy is the one in Buenos Aires. By clicking there, we can access the basic data of the concurrent embassy, and here you also have information on all the other concurrent embassies in the case of India. Same happens with Asia Pacific. We click here on the right, and it displays all embassies and consulates of Uruguay in India, and now we are on entities of Uruguay in other countries. We can select Malaysia, search, and it displays the embassy of Uruguay in Malaysia and the consular section of the embassy of Uruguay in Malaysia. We believe this is an important tool when we need to contact an embassy, or if we need to know if we have an embassy in one of the countries of Asia Pacific or in Latin America. If we click on the Asia Pacific upper button, it displays the Asia Pacific map with all the countries and economies of that region. In this case, we click on Indonesia, just for you to see that it presents the same data that we saw in the case of Uruguay. Basic data, main portals, tariffs, services, and commercial profiles, the analysis of its trade policies, and also a document on the international organizations of Indonesia. And down here, we will always find the tool to find embassies, general consulates, or honorary consulates. This tool will be more and more powerful because we will add more institutions, and that will be one of the improvements to be made on the portal in this second phase that starts today. This is the first section of the website under the title about the observatory with institutional information. Now we go back to the home page and we click on the left sidebar on the first tool of the three tools that we said were the most important tools of the portal. We open agreements and negotiations. On agreements and negotiations, here I will take a moment to explain this matrix that you are seeing. By default, once we come into this section, it displays the trade relations between both regions through this kind of matrix. On the left side, we have the economies of Latin America, and on the top, the economies of Asia Pacific. Each small blue square represents a trade agreement. By default, this matrix shows trade agreements, and we have identified three categories of trade agreements: trade preference agreements, free trade agreements, or economic partnership agreements. All the three are included here, and this provides a fast first approach on the current status of trade relations among the countries of Latin America and the economies and countries of Asia Pacific. Let's see, as an example, what happens if we want to look for more information. We will check the agreement between Peru and Japan. When we click on the small blue square, the system displays a page where we can see it is an economic partnership agreement. It provides basic information such as the date of signature and the term of the agreement. When we click on this link, it displays the basic information and provides access to the complete text of the agreement. I won't do it now because there are usually large documents. These are usually large documents and it takes some time. This is the information presented for each agreement, and you can always have access to the text. Now we return to agreements. The same information presented for trade agreements is presented for investment agreements. If you click on the investment agreements button, it will automatically display the matrix. In this case, it is a little bit more crowded because there are more investment agreements signed between these two regions than trade agreements. So there are more investment agreements, and we could, as an example, click on the agreement between Chile and Malaysia. And here we see it is BIT, that is an investment agreement between Chile and Malaysia. It provides basic information such as the one we saw before, and we can also have access to further details on the agreement as well as to its text. In this case, I believe it is of interest to highlight the search button. This search engine enables us to establish different search criteria or filters on trade or investment agreements, that is by date of signature, by category, by title, by countries that are involved. So it is always possible to do advanced search related to agreements, investments, or trade agreements. That are the ones we are checking in these matrices. Going back, I would like to show you that on the top of this agreement and negotiations tool, we can also go to negotiations. On the negotiations page, we find the negotiations matrix, a little bit more colorful, because what we are showing here is a matrix that presents a summary on all the ongoing negotiations between both regions. All trade relations through trade agreements. Here we do not present investment agreements, only trade agreements that are being negotiated between the Latin American countries and the economies and countries of Asia Pacific. But in this case, we aim not only at presenting negotiations, but also at showing the current status of each negotiation. We have established different stages. We have established that a negotiation can be under study when the first steps are taken, that the negotiation can be in the middle of the negotiation when it already started, and for example, a first round of negotiations is taking place or an agreement has already been signed. As you know, it usually takes some time from the signature of the agreement until it is really in force. Sometimes other negotiations are opened in other fields, but it is important to follow up that negotiation in order to see what's going on and when it might really enter into force. On negotiations, we can also do advanced search using different criteria in order to find negotiations. So if we do not know if there are negotiations between two countries of both regions, we can search to check it. Now we will see an example. We can see negotiations between Colombia and the Republic of Korea, and as the square is colored with sky blue, it shows that the agreement was already signed, but it is not yet in force. So, it first presents the agreement category. It shows that it is a free trade agreement between Colombia and the Republic of Korea, and that it was signed in 2013. If we click on this link, we can see the current status, and it shows it is active. It is active because it was already signed. Here you will find different links and other documents of interest that we will gradually add if available. Unfortunately, many times we don't have the information because, as you know, usually documents related to negotiations are confidential, but all the information available will be uploaded. What is interesting of this tool is that we can not only see what is going on in the active stage, but we can also see the background, what took place along the negotiation. For instance, if we go to under negotiations, we can do a follow-up, see the different rounds, the first rounds, where they took place. We can also have access to documents related to those rounds. That is, it provides information on the whole process. If we go to under study, we can see the first steps of the negotiation. Feasibility agreements are typical of this stage, and here we can access the feasibility study. Feasibility studies are usually very complete, and they include very useful information. This is what I wanted to explain about the different stages. I would also like to mention this other case because it can happen that the square is divided. That means that there is probably more than one negotiation relation between two countries, and we should explain why that happens. Let's see the example of Chile and Vietnam, where this happens. There is an agreement under negotiations, you can see the colors, and there is another one that has already been signed. The one under negotiation is the TPP. Chile and Vietnam are negotiating a new agreement that is not bilateral but multilateral, a new agreement through the TPP. And we can do the follow-up of this special negotiation. But also, if we go back to the matrix and we click on the blue color of the same square, that takes us to another case, the FTA Chile-Vietnam, already negotiated and signed by these two countries. Through the link, we can access complementary information on the agreement. Now we come back to the matrix. So, the first tool, Agreements and Negotiations, is mainly about all this, to have an overview of all trade agreements and negotiations that exist between the two regions, and to have access to the concurrent status of those negotiations, to the complementary information on those negotiations, as well as to the texts of the agreements in a very simple and amiable way. Let's move now to the next important tool, the Economic Commercial Monitor. In short, the Economic Commercial Monitor shows a series of indicators, around 40 indicators, that are organized in different categories that you see on the top of the portal. Basic data, trade of goods, trade of services, tariffs, exchange rates and prices. Here we can access economic and commercial indicators that will let us search in countries or economies of both regions or sub-regions, or countries and sub-regions of the same region. That could also be the case. You know that the focus of the observatory and of the portal is always the analysis of the relations between Asia-Pacific and Latin America, but it provides some indicators that let us compare countries of the same region. By default, it displays basic data. If we open the indicator drop-down menu, it displays all indicators included in the basic data category: nominal GDP, growth GDP, population, GDP per capita, manufacture, unemployment, gross capital formation, current account balance, FDI, net income from FDI in GDP percentage. Let's see an example to see how this economic commercial monitor works. For instance, we select nominal GDP, and we can see here the case of ALADI, and here the case of Asian. By default, it will always display the whole series from 1980 to 2012, but we can set the year according to your preferences. When we click search, this tool will automatically generate a graph for the series, and if we position the mouse on the series, it displays the corresponding data and year. This is the evolution of nominal GDP between ALADI and Asian. But remember, it is possible to select single countries or economies and compare them. Data can be downloaded in an Excel file. On the bottom, you have the possibility show notes, and this lets you access the so-called missing information of those years with lack of information, so it is always important to open that link in order to access that information. Another important feature is that on top of the graphs, you will find notes and methodological explanatory notes on the meaning of the indicator. Nominal GDP is a very simple indicator, but sometimes it could be useful to read the note to have more information, and the access is here. Still on basic data, we could change nominal GDP and select net income from FDI and keep the same subregions and trade agreements. The graph will automatically display the relative evolution of foreign direct investments of ALADI and Asia. For instance, we could select a country instead of searching subregions and change to manufacture. This indicator shows the importance of manufacturing in the GDP, and we could see the case of Brazil and compare it with the case of Malaysia. Here it displays the evolution of the importance of manufacture on the GDP when we compare Malaysia with Brazil. Remember that we can always download all series in an Excel document, view the notes, that is another important recommendation, and of course we can choose the more convenient period for our analysis. So, this is the first category of indicators organized under basic data. If we go to trade of goods, which is the second category, it displays all these indicators. Exports, imports, trade balance, same information but related to GDP, bilateral export, bilateral imports. This lets you analyze how much one country from one region exports to another region, or which is the trade balance. So the search is not in relative terms, but bilateral. Main markets, main exported products. Here we could select bilateral exports and see how much ALADI exports to Asian. We are talking about trade of goods, and see the evolution of the whole series. Here we see how the relation between ALADI and Asian has been growing regarding exports. This graph is very interesting. As I have already mentioned, we can download it in an Excel file, and it's highly recommended to read the methodological notes. Here we could also do a different kind of search with the main markets indicator and select Mercosur and Asia Pacific. This will let us see the main Mercosur markets in Asia Pacific. Just a brief explanation. in the information available on main markets, main providers, and main products is from 2001 to 2011. As you can see, it is included on the title. So if you don't select 2011, the automatic tool will display the aggregate. So these are the main aggregated markets from 2001 to 2011, from the Mercosur to Asia Pacific. But if you select 2011, it will only display data for 2011, but always covering only the period 2001-2011. And here you can also download the data in an Excel file. If we now go to trading services, we can see the export of services versus GDP and compare the situation of Latin America with Asia Pacific according to this indicator and how it has evolved. This graph is also interesting. Here we see the importance of exports versus GDP in Asia Pacific and Latin America. We can always download this data and expand the information related to missing, that is, those years with lack of information. On tariffs, we find two indicators. The most favored nation tariffs, plain average and weighted average. Here we could see the evolution of the plain average and FN tariffs in the Mercosur in comparison to Asian. And here we will select from 1991 and search to see what it displays. The graph shows how the evolution of the plain average MFN tariff of the Mercosur in comparison with Asian. As always, we can download the data. This last content is exchange rate and prices. These are three indicators. There are three indicators: nominal exchange rate, inflation, and real exchange rate index. Let's present an example with this indicator. We can compare the case of Brazil and China to see what happened with this indicator in the last years. So, the economic commercial monitor lets us browse in a series of indicators, around 40, but the challenge and the commitment of adding a second series, as several indicators were not included and we want to add them. Our challenge is to continue generating a larger set of indicators, which will always be organized in different categories so that the search will also be better organized and it will be always possible to search sub-regions. We will continue creating more sub-regions and countries. The search can be done with countries of the same regions or also with countries of different regions, although, as we always point out, the focus of the observatory is the analysis of the economic and commercial relations between these two regions and not inside one region. Now we will go back to the home page to get to know the third of the three most important tools, business intelligence. With this tool, you can search trade opportunities in a 6-digit level between countries and economies of both regions. That's basically the main purpose of this tool. In the case of a businessman who knows by heart the nomenclature of his product, he could type here the 6 digits of the product or the chapter and start searching. If the user does not remember the number, by clicking here, the system displays the harmonized code so that we can select it from the list, which is easier, and it also provides access to the headings, right? By clicking here, it displays the heading level. By clicking here, the subheading level, and when you click on the name, the product is already selected for the search. Let's select 62. When we select 62, the tool will display all the opportunities in 6 digits for Chapter 62. This is important. If we do not type 6 digits, if we just type the chapter, it will display all the information. Let's see the example for Chapter 62. This chapter refers to clothing. Let's see if Argentina has opportunities to export clothes to Japan. Here we select Argentina as exporter and Japan as importer, and the search provides this chart. If we position the mouse on top of the subheading number, the description of the item is shown. It is impossible to know all that by heart. So here it displays the harmonized system code in the subheading level, the importing country, in this case, as we defined our search criteria, the total imports of Japan of each subheading, the total exported by Argentina of each subheading, the current trade flow of the selected markets, and the potential. The potential is calculated based on the data I just referred. The program also informs the type of opportunity, if it is a new opportunity because there was no former relation involving that product, or if it is an extension of an existing opportunity, or if there is no opportunity at all, which is also a possibility. The period involves years. It does not use data of 1 year, but averages based on operation of, for instance, 2009, 2010, 2011. Here you can see that it presents the MFN tariff for each of the subheadings and the base year of the tariff in this case. If we access these links, these little magnifying glasses, then we get complementary information regarding access. No tariff information because the tariff information was provided in the chart, and no information on agreements because that information is available in the Agreements and Negotiations tool. But other access information that is important to know in order to have access to that market. In this case, we selected Japan. Therefore, we have something that we organized as other trade policies mechanisms that provides several important links that every exporter should check before facing the challenge of trying to export to this market. The customs tariff regime through a link that takes you to Japan customs, and also Japan administrative requirements to import goods. So all this information is organized here to get to know better the non-tariff access to that market that we believe should be taken into account. If we click on return, it brings us back to the search results. Something interesting of this tool. We made a search for a specific chapter or a product, but it could be useful to make a search without selecting any chapter or good. For example, let's change regions and select India to see which opportunities India might have in, let's see, Bolivia, without selecting any chapter, so that it displays all opportunities. The tool calculated automatically, and it's organizing India's opportunities in Bolivia, and they are organized according to the potential. Obviously, it is a very long list, as we did not select any special product. I believe this kind of search could be interesting for academic purposes, of course, not for business. This is regarding business opportunities on the upper buttons. If we click on useful information, this tool provides information on all trade shows that are taking place or going to take place in the different countries and economies that are part of the observatory. The search tools are available all along the portal in each section, letting us search according to the criteria we can establish. So, we saw the case of Japan, that is Argentina exporting to Japan. It could be interesting to know what kind of trade shows or trade rounds will take place in Japan to see if we find any that is related to our export sector. Here we see all the information. In the case of Japan, the list is very long, and if we click on the links on the left, we access first-hand information on each trade show or trade round, and we can enroll or get information on costs, etc. In that sense, it is also a very useful tool. We will also add more information to this section. That's why its name is not trade shows and commercial rounds, but general information or interesting information, because we will add other information. Here we end the presentation of these three tools that we defined as essential in the beginning of the presentation, and we will continue with the agenda and other sections of the portal. In the agenda, we can see the launching of the portal that is taking place now. This section presents not only the agenda of the observatory, but also the organizations that are members of the observatory and that carry out events related to the Asia-Pacific subject matter. We can browse the agenda starting from different contents, upcoming events that we are seeing here, seminars held, the observatory, because the observatory already carried out some events. The last one was the relations of Asia and Japan with Latin America. If we click on the link, we access information on the seminar and also the presentations of the lecturers. These are the categories of agenda. On reports from the observatory, we find some interventions of staff members of the observatory or some participations of the coordinator in different events. We believe it is of interest to publish them in the portal. Also here we can use a search engine based on different criteria. These are the main items of the agenda. The news section is a very dynamic section of the website, being permanently updated. News is organized in different categories. Here we present news on entrepreneurial events related to this subject, news on academic events, on negotiations and publications. When we click on those buttons, we gain access to different news on seminars, negotiations. Sometimes negotiations generate news that not necessarily are in the negotiations tool or agreements, as these are news that inform us about some progress or something that is taking place. There are several news available. That was in negotiations. When we go to publications, we can see that the latest papers on the Asia-Pacific subject matter that are published can be found here. The sources of the news are official sources, and they provide us an update on what is going on in these two regions. The press section will let us have a basic idea and very fast access to the main graphic and digital media of the different economies of both regions of all the countries of the observatory. Sometimes it is easier in Latin America to know which newspaper to read, but in Asia Pacific we cannot count on that all the graphic media will be available in English to daily review their news. This section is organized in two categories, Latin America and Asia Pacific, each of them providing links to several digital newspapers of the different countries and economies of the observatory. For instance, this is one link that takes us to the digital version of the newspaper, letting us have easy and fast access and to know what's going on in the two regions. The next section is publications. We are working very hard to keep it updated. It is organized in 3 categories: publications by the Observatory, ALADI ECLAC base, and Observatory base. Regarding the publications by the Observatory, as Gladys pointed out in the beginning, the Observatory already has its own publications and it will continue publishing more papers. We issue a biannual statistical bulletin on the economic commercial relations between Latin America and Asia Pacific. Bulletin number 1 was already published, and next week number 2 will be issued. We also have a special report, and we will soon launch a special document that is being prepared by the ECLAC for the Observatory on the relations of Latin America with Asia. Roberto Urmeneta presented the first results in Montevideo 1.5 months ago. This publication will also be available here, and we will continue adding more and more publications. In the ALADI ECLAC base, we have been working with the libraries of the ALADI and the ECLAC, very well known due to the rich information they have. More than 500 papers and documents specialized in the relations between Latin America and Asia Pacific have been selected. From the academic point of view, this is of high value. For example, to contribute with some research work or some thesis, as it provides access to more than 500 papers on what has been studied on this subject. The search engine is available, as in all other sections of the portal. The search can be done by author, title, etc. The Observatory base is still under construction, but it will be launched soon. The Observatory makes a permanent academic intelligence effort looking for papers in order to access the latest publications on this subject. This work is uploaded in a base, and then it will be evaluated by a network of academics that we are building. We will talk about this later. So, our goal is that the Observatory, through its portal on the web, shall provide quick access to the latest literature specialized on this topic, and therefore we will make a permanent updating effort. Finally, but not less important, contact. Why do I say it's not less important? Because we believe it is very important to get your feedback and opinions, and the contact form is a means to do it. Through this section, we get to know what you are finding in the portal, your suggestions. Certainly, this project starts today its second phase, in which we aim at enhancing it in order to make it more and more efficient, more and more specialized. This web portal that provides, as we already saw, different and useful information. But we intend to get the comments and feedback of the users on the performance of the site, suggestions on what they would like to be added. We will take that into account, as the purpose of the site is to be useful for everybody and also to bring closer both regions, Asia Pacific and Latin America. As I was telling you, there was a slight technical issue, but everything we have seen today is already available in English and Portuguese, and this is very important so that each party of the Observatory can have access to everything, especially the people from Asia Pacific. This would be the end of the presentation, and we would like to open a space for your questions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ignacio. We are open to listen to questions, suggestions, opinions from any of you. Anybody would like to participate? Yes. Alternate Ambassador of Colombia. Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for the current status of what not so long ago was just a project of the association. I could see that it ended being very complete, organized, and logical. I have a question that might be the contact point between the studies referred by the ECLAC and what we've just seen, for instance, regarding agreements. I think there are 40 search options for the agreements and negotiations. There are agreements with some special sections or complexities, such as the FTA between Colombia and Korea. A very difficult issue was the automotive sector. It doesn't involve a case of raw materials or anything similar. Considering that this is something that evolves and gradually, as well as its good status, current status, I don't know if we could collect something such as lessons that we have learned, best practices of each negotiation process, either if it is an ongoing negotiation or if it's already finished, some very special thing of each negotiation that could help other countries or that was especially important for the country involved. Thank you. Without any doubt, that question would deserve its own research. I think this tool lets us identify some patterns of the negotiations and then maybe ask a consultant as a next step to do some research on those issues. And the observatory could also include some sections or specific research to find answers to your question, which is true. It happens, and we still have no answer available from the tool. We have the whole agreement and its background, the base for your questions. I'll take note of your comments to try to deepen on this point through some research. Any more questions or comments? Good morning. My name is Jaime Sotelo, a Minister Counselor from El Salvador. I would like to congratulate the ECLAC, the ALADI, and CAF for all the work done. We can see that this is a search engine that contributes to prepare studies and to have a very fast overview in seconds of whatever we would like to search on instruments or ongoing negotiations. I would like to ask if we could include in the observatory, as our economies are changing and we are in the middle of an international crisis, if it would be possible to include some subjects or elements that could help the countries to have some terms of reference on the situation of the world economy, for instance, in a special period, analyzing inflation, what's going on, what's making the current crisis get worse or better. So some key aspects that any economic analyst would like to have available in order to carry out any initiative. Thank you and congratulations for the good work. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we can include links of other websites that have to do with the world economic context, but we would like to highlight that the focus of the portal is on the relations between Latin America and Asia Pacific. We would like to lose focus, even if we can add more general links to the portal. Besides, the other organizations that are part of the observatory provide that global information. So if you visit the websites of the ECLAC or CAF, you will find global information on what is going on in Latin America on the main projects. For example, a very developed subject at the CAF is infrastructure. We have organized seminars between both regions aiming at finding out how to boost this tool. Every year, the ECLAC publishes a report that includes an analysis of the economy and the regions. That is, there is plenty of information, and in each of our websites there are also links to even more global pages. Of course, the observatory can play the role of being a bridge towards such information. Any other comment, Roberto? Yes, I would like to add that the ECLAC every 2 or 3 months publishes several evaluations on the world economy. Yesterday we presented one on foreign direct investments in Latin America. In 2 or 3 weeks we will publish another one on the behavior of the main economies, then another one on the main business partners, etc. Obviously, we cannot put everything in the portal, so the option would be to use links. Taking the side of the researcher, how much time we could have saved if we had this tool before. I spent months, years, to prepare a series, to make a graph, or to establish a correlation. So finally, we have a fast tool that lets us save a lot of time. We want to get economic information or information on negotiations, etc. I'm a little jealous of this, but I'm very happy to see it. I don't know if any of you have tried to make the map of the agreements between Latin America and another continent. How long did it take? So my first comment is that finally we have that tool. And the second part would be to realize that here we have the experience of several years of consultations. Which are the graphs with higher impact? Which are the best graphs for research? Which are the best studies on each subject? That means that the portal, in fact, accumulates a series of previous works, and I would like to emphasize that it must be used. We know that Asia is going to use it because it will help them know their potential in the Latin American countries. We also have to use it to have more information on them and know better our export potential. I would like to tell you a story. As Ignacio said, I am finishing the study on the relation between Asian and Latin America. A lot of what you can find in my study is in this portal. But if I have had the portal before, instead of taking 1.5 years for this research, I would have really done it in a couple of months. Anybody who has developed this kind of job will understand what I am telling you. It's fantastic. Thank you, Roberto. We are now going to inform about the creation of the Academic Council, the next activity of the ECLAC. Yes. The academic seminar will take place on August 21st at the ECLAC. Roberto Urmeneta will tell us very fast about the details of the call for papers that we are launching in the portal today. As we have this fast and interactive tool, we would like to carry out a seminar where it is possible to make academic presentations on the relation Asia-Latin America. We just established the date, so it's really the latest news. It will be on August 21st. I would like to provide a list of topics to encourage all researchers to present papers on the subject. We would like to invite all specialists to send articles on this interrelation. It's an open invitation to people that are making research on the subject to present their works. Or maybe some union might be interested in presenting a potentiality study. As a guide for the presentations, we have established several topics to concentrate the interest. The first would be the contribution of the economic integration processes to the development of the Asian value chains. You know that Factory Asia is already a well-known subject, so there are several value chains in Asia, and we find very interesting to see the creation of the integration processes, basically Asia plus 1, Asia plus 3, Asia plus 6, made possible the creation of value chains in Asia. The second topic would be on the role of Asia in the coordination of the whole Asia. It is very difficult to think about integration or any bilateral agreement between China and Japan. These countries have had some issues in their long history, so it's very important to really understand the role of Asia in the coordination of the whole Asian continent. The third topic would be trade policies instruments of Asia. We believe that several instruments have been developed in Asia that can be useful to compare them with the existing ones in Latin America. The fourth topic would be trade relations between Asia Pacific and Latin America regarding trade exchange and also institutional matters. The interest in the institutional matters is interesting due to the trans-Pacific cooperation relations. We usually think about Europe cooperating with Latin America, but what about the South-South cooperation, or what will happen in the future with Trans-Pacific cooperation? It is just starting, and it's very important to follow up its evolution. Certainly, investment issues, investments are still low between the two regions, but there is a huge growth potential, and it will continue growing. Of course, we want academic documents or papers with a critical point of view. What has been bought by both parties, and which are the trends they reflect. And the last one, and a little bit more focused on the future, what are the regional value chains, that is, inside our region, that can have a relation with the value chains in Asia Pacific? How to participate in the general value chains through the regional value chains in Latin America. These topics, as I said, are not closed, so we are inviting all researchers that would like to present papers in the seminar. Thank you very much for coming today. We hope we will continue deepening in the research on this subject and continue building on this important subject for all of us. Thank you very much.